Welcome to another episode of Cross-Checking, where today, the two of us and 7 of you random listeners, we're not sure which ones yet, join the fellowship of the church as we seek to destroy the ring of power, or something like that.
I don't know what I was expecting for that cold open, but that wasn't it. I'm not upset about it, but
It came out of left field for you.
welcome to Cross-Checking, ladies and gentlemen. Your favorite vaguely hockey themed Jesus podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Laborious. I'm a pastor out of where am I out
so
of?
shook he can't even remember who he is at this point.
Hope Lutheran Church in Friendswood, Texas.
I'm Pastor Ben Olschlager, pastor at Good Shepherd Lutheran in Lake Orion, Michigan, and well, Josh gets his bearings again. I'll introduce our episode for the day. We're continuing on with our season on discipleship, and we're kind of talking about the modes of discipleship over these last few episodes of the season. Last episode, which was a couple weeks ago at this point, we talked about how being educated in the faith, growing in our knowledge of what God's trying to do, growing in our knowledge of the Word, are good things for us as Christians as we dive into what God has for us. And this week, we're going to talk about how fellowship, which is a related component of that, but also just good for so many other things, is a discipleship growing avenue. It is not the avenue. It is not like you get to pick one of these, but it is part of, my head just said part of the ship, part of the crew. For those of you who are Pirates of the Caribbean fans. But it is part and parcel of what we are called to do as the church. And for those of you who are thinking, I'm an introvert, I hate this already, it's okay. You can do it at your speed, but it's still good to do.
Yeah. And
so Josh basically wrote his education doctorate. I don't know. Do they call it a dissertation?
it is a dissertation.
Okay. So he wrote his dissertation on the topic of fellowship and education. So like we could not have gotten more into his wheelhouse, could not have gotten more into his baby, if we want to call it that. Like, he has 3 children. He has his 2 boys, and he has this topic.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. That's fair.
So, Josh, when we're thinking about discipleship and we're thinking about how our fellowship plays into discipleship, what is like the biggest thing that people already get right, and what is the biggest thing that we get wrong? Let's start there.
Why, Ben? I'm so glad you asked. So the biggest thing we get right about fellowship when it comes to discipleship are, and this might not give us enough credit, it might give us too much credit, are the things we do automatically. And okay, hold on, Ben. Can you hear the echo?
I can't. No. I think it's only
well, then I'll
you.
keep going and I'll just process out. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't come up in the recording. So the human brain is tailor-made to process fellowship in, we can say in a discipleship way, but even more broadly in a way that it's learning. And essentially, and this is an oversimplification. So if you're a psychologist, if you're an educator, neuroscientist, like,
or if you're just a nerd.
I know we have at least a couple of counselors who listen. I know I'm oversimplifying things. Calm down. You can kind of imagine it how your brain doesn't have enough time to think in daily interactions. So if most of our audience are Americans, our pace of conversation is pretty quick, right? Even if you just leave a second or two in between conversational speaking partners, like people are like, oh, you're taking so long to respond. Why are you doing that? That's weird. So you don't necessarily have time to like stop and reflect about what you're going to say.
Reference thing on that. We speak at 100 words a minute. We read at, depending on whether you're reading for like, if you're power reading for class, you're up to like 250. I think for like a casual reading speed, it's more like 150 to 2. And our brains can take that in and process that okay. Because we're like processing on a larger scale. But the things that we see and experience going on around us, it's not just words, it's words, it's emotions, it's physical movement, activity. And so there's
body
like
language,
thousands of words of information trying to be funneled through your brain. Picture trying to like shove a baguette through a fine mesh sieve. That's kind of what your brain is trying to do. The bits that get through stick, but there's so much that there's a lot that gets lost and just mashed into the
and you
filter.
have to respond to that.
Yep.
And it's very similar for a lot of the things we do as well. Like life, maybe for major decisions, we have time to say, I'm going to stop. I'm going to think this through. What are the implications? What's going to be the impact of whatever I do? But often you don't have that time. If you're in a conversation, you respond. Mm-hmm. That's how conversations work. If you're out in the grocery store, how are you going to treat the person who bumped you with their cart? How are you going to deal with the person who is struggling to reach the top shelf if you're a taller person? Like, these are things you're not going to say, let me meditate on that for 3 to 5 minutes and think, what is the best answer? So your brain can't think fast enough. So how do we do this? How does your brain decide how to respond, what to do, what to say? And here's where the oversimplification part comes in. The fastest, neurologically speaking, the fastest parts of your brain are the relational and emotional processing centers. Okay? So what your brain essentially does is, first and foremost, you will have a primary group identity. And if you're a Christian, we are hoping that that is your primary group identity. It's not always. There are all sorts of people they'll identify as most closely with their political party or with their club, pick their club. So for kids, it's kind of like you might have sports or you might have some club they're in at school. For grown folks, it could be a country club or a Facebook group or like whatever
hobby,
whatever social circle is most important to you. We're going to call that your primary group identity. And so what your brain does is, over your affiliation with this group, your brain builds a model. And if I was doing this and we had a whiteboard, and most of you are listening, so that wouldn't help either, I would draw a stick figure and I'd name him Dave.
Why
and
Dave,
you build this
Josh?
Model, and then what you do...
Just 'cause?
What?
Why Dave? Just 'cause?
Oh, because it's a great name. Big Wave Dave. In those moments where you don't have time to sit and think and meditate and reflect, and you're just acting, what your brain does as a shortcut is it looks at Dave, this model you've built in your head, and it says, what would Dave do? And then responds like that. And
Dave is built on your group.
Yeah, Dave is the caricature of your group. The quintessential member. Dave is usually not a real person. It's in your head. It's this image. It's this model of the group that you have built. Okay, and all of this is unconsciously. Like, you don't intentionally do any of this. This is just how your brain functions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is one of the things we do really well. We build this model and then we behave according to this model, and all of this happens automatically. So when it comes to discipleship, step 1, group identity, is Christianity. And then step 2 is you build and act according to this model. Where do we fall short on this? Like, what do we do most poorly? When it comes to fellowship and discipleship, I have 2 responses. One is kind of on a big systematic level, and one is kind of on an individual level. But they're both very closely related.
You can give us both. That's fine. That's allowed. Before we do that, though, just to summarize what we do well, it's that we engage in fellowship, and oftentimes that trains us to respond well as a group. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the stuff that we do subconsciously.
Yeah.
So maybe another way to think about this is, for those of you who know how to drive, like, the conscious part of what we're doing is getting from A to B. You've looked up directions, you figured out how to get there. Maybe you plugged it into your phone and you're following GPS. Just look up directions. It's better for your brain. And you're driving there. The subconscious part is somebody cut you off, and now you have to respond in split second so that you don't slam into the back of their car. If your training has been good, you will slam on the brakes, or you will turn off into the why am I blanking on this word?
The shoulder, the median.
Thank you, the shoulder. Yeah, you're turning off into the shoulder where there are no cars, or you're doing something to avoid the accident safely. If you're not trained well, you floor it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're doing well is we've trained our brains to respond appropriately to the things that we see around us in the world by the fellowship that we keep.
Yes. And this actually, Ben's example kind of tailors in well to what we sometimes do poorly in the church. And that is our scope for building the model that is Dave is far too narrow.
Okay. Make that regular people speak, Josh.
I'm getting there. Okay. So if you'll recall, Dave is this model we have in our heads, and we say, what would Dave do? And then we do what Dave does. Okay. You only build that model by seeing it in action. Okay. So I sit in worship on a Sunday morning. I look around. I see how people are behaving. If you're at a Lutheran church, people are standing and sitting together when they are told to stand and sit. They Maybe are probably kneeling. Not yelling out amen too often.
Unless you're in the South.
Even then. It's a fairly reserved group. And in your head, you say, okay, so this is how Dave behaves in worship. You then go to the grocery store. You have no idea at this point how Dave behaves in a grocery store.
Mm.
So the model stops being helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you lean on another model from another group, maybe. Mm-hmm. Or you maybe imagine what Dave might do. Okay? When I say we have developed too narrow a view, we tend to hyper-focus on church things. We worship, we do Bible study, and we do that a lot, and that is good. Not knocking that at all. But when it comes to discipleship holistically and saying we want to reflect Christ, we want to behave and think and speak like a Christian everywhere, that means we have to start building this mental model everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that expands when we think about, well, where do we do fellowship? It's not just church thing. Like it is a discipleship activity to go see a soccer game, go see a football game, go see a hockey game with church people. Because then you're seeing that's how we behave in this place, in this space, in this kind of social environment. It is discipleship to just get together and have dinner together.
I would maybe not go with Josh to a hockey game because when I don't even know who's left on the Preds at this point. Sorry.
Me neither. A lot of them were in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
Preds players, or the Preds weren't, but the Preds players were.
So if you had gone with Josh to a Preds game before March of this year, it would not have been good for you to watch Josh yell at Colton Sissons to rip somebody's head off.
That is both a fair point. And I would say that even if you're going to see someone's sports team and they're really into it and it's going poorly, that also helps you build your model. But this comes to one of the problems with the model is it can become disfigured.
Mm.
Now, here's how you build your model. You look at people who you perceive as more mature members of the group identity.
Mm-hmm.
So this doesn't necessarily mean someone who's older than you. This means someone you look to as an example of that group identity.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully your pastor is one of those people, right? Hopefully Ben and I, or whoever your pastor may be, is contributing to your model of what it looks like to be a Christian, even though we may be younger than you. Okay?
For example,
but if you
might
see
follow
someone
Josh's
who you
example of like what it looks like for a Christian to get swole.
Yeah.
Or you might follow my example of what it looks like for a Christian to grow a nice beard.
It is quite the beard. But if you see one of those more mature members of your group, a more mature Christian, doing something that they shouldn't do, but you don't know that, it can become part of your mental model. And then that's something that does have to get corrected at some point. So it would be like you're building this mental model of Dave, and then Dave has 3 arms.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, that's not...
I mean, taking
not
this
quite
to
right, but it becomes part of the mental model until something comes along to challenge and overcome that.
Yeah. I mean, taking this back to the driving example for a second, it's like, so this is something my mom got annoyed with me at, and I'll own up to the fact that I'm not great about this. I don't necessarily remember to turn on my turn signal until I'm like ready to make a turn. So it's often kind of late. I still use it and I think it's helpful, but it's later than it probably should be. But like rewiring my brain as I'm driving to go, okay, turn on your turn signal, then hit the brake, then turn, right? That's not necessarily the order that my brain processes in at the moment, but I need to. Like I need to, for the sake of everyone else on the road, better indicate when I'm trying to make a turn. And same kind of thing with discipleship. If we've built bad habits into our model, it doesn't necessarily even have to be that Dave has 3 arms. It could just be that like one of Dave's hands just casually, spastically flips the bird every once in a while. You know, like we don't love that. We want to build that
not in a good-natured way either. Not in a friendly way, in an aggressive way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this circles back to what is our weakness, where do we kind of miss on this, is we don't let ourselves be exposed more consistently to people who are going to help us build our model.
Mm-hmm.
So spend time with the fix for this is very simple. Spend time with other Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at my family's week, not to toot my own horn, but to kind of show you an example of what this looks like. Monday night, guys are coming over to my house. We're having a small group. Exposure to other Christians. Tuesday, Chris' 7 ladies over to her house for a small group. Exposure to other Christians. Wednesday during the school year, there's ministry here on campus. We call it Mosaic, where we're eating open to the whole church. Folks are eating meals together. Sometimes we're doing a stupid game, sometimes we're doing something else, and then we do some learning. Christians being together. Friday night, we got a family small group. We all get together, like 3 or 4 families of people. Christians being together. Sunday night, we have pickleball. Christians being together. All of that is formative. Some of it is educational, kind of calling back to our previous episode, but it's just Christians spending time together. This includes the church bowling night. This includes Lutherfest and Splash Bash and VBS volunteering. Like anytime you have a chance to just be together with other Christians, go get coffee one morning with your friend from church. Grab dinner with another couple. Like all of these things, like it's an easy fix. We just have to broaden our focus on when are we spending time with other Christians? When are we building this mental model we have? And very similarly, I think a systematic weakness we have when it comes to fellowship as a tool for discipleship is our view systematically is entirely too narrow. And this is definitely something that came out of my research for my dissertation. A lot of churches, fellowship is almost an afterthought. It's something they do not with really a lot of intentionality behind it. It's just, they just do it because it's fun, which is good. But if you don't have the drive that like this is actually really important, it won't happen as consistently. It won't be as robust as it could be. Okay, because, and it's really good that Ben started this episode by saying this is one of many faces of discipleship and how we grow in discipleship. He has said that qualifier. I am willing to go so far as to say this is one of the most important, because first of all, if you're looking for being formed in the image of Christ, this is one of the most impactful ways, because here's the thing, you can go to Bible class all you want and you can know all the right answers. Are you doing them? Like that's the thing. A lot of times when Christians do something they shouldn't do, and you ask them, should you have done that? They know the right answer. They know that they shouldn't have done it, but they did it anyway because these instincts kick in. You got to build the model. So like, it's so important. And from a church perspective, it's not just the formation in the image of Christ, which is a critical thing. Don't want to understate that at all. Retention.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are churches, like you want to retain members, make it so they have a bunch of close friends at the church. You don't leave a place like that, barring something dramatically bad happening. Okay, the example I use for people is when I worked at campus dining at Vanderbilt, which is not like, it's not a cushy job. It's a dining hall job. It was fine. It was fine. It wasn't always fine. My sophomore year, I got approached by one of the full-time managers. They wanted to work on something called the guardianship program. Because retention was like 30% year to year. They could not keep workers, and they wanted to fix it. So guardianship program came in. So we did a couple things, and most of it was schedule people on shifts with their friends. Like when we were scheduling shifts for the semester, we asked, who do you want to work with? And then we told student managers, as they were assigning student workers around to the different stations at the dining hall, the different workstations, We said as much as possible, let people work next to their friends. Like, what we were doing there wasn't incredibly hard. You're taking food from one container and putting it on a tray or a plate. You can do that while you're chatting with your friend next to you in line. Okay. You can do it. Our retention rate went from 30% to something like 70%. Because work becomes a lot less bad when you're going to work with friends. If it works for campus dining, surely.
It's got to work for the
church.
And I think, Josh, I think an undersold part of that is if we as the church do a better job of forming each other to where you have those kinds of, like, you just have a well-built Dave, right? Then if you have to move, if you have to leave the church for some reason, you're going to go looking for a place that mirrors your well-built Dave. And you're not going to find that outside of a church, right? So it's not just that it increases retention at a single congregation. It increases retention throughout life and across significant life changes. So this is one of those where you lean into the, like, college kid goes off to school and just stops going to church, right? Why did they stop going to church? Because their Dave model did not include going to church. Their Dave model included kind of acting vaguely Christian, but it didn't include going to church. But if you build that Dave model well to where they value church and they understand the purpose behind going, and Dave on a Sunday morning, even if they've made some foolish choices their first weekend at college, still might get out of bed and drag his butt to church. And then you, mirroring Dave, might also drag yourself out of bed and get your butt to church. And that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, and then the other place where this kind of thing, this is, I would say that in today's day and age, in the modern age, this is our single best tool for evangelism. Because it is such a lower threshold of initial engagement. Like if your first foray into church is a Sunday morning worship service, that's a pretty high threshold. Or even a Bible study, that's a pretty high threshold. But if it's, hey, I'm going bowling with my church, do you want to come bowling with us? That is a very low threshold for engagement. And then with that, they are getting to start to build their Dave. And as Dave gets more and more mature, then you come into the Bible study, then you come into worship, because Dave, this mental model of who we are, and they start to identify with the group because they're building this community. So I think individually, our biggest weakness with fellowship as discipleship is our focus is too narrow. And we don't expose ourselves as often as we should to other Christians. And then systematically, our focus is too narrow because we don't unleash the power of fellowship to its fullest. We don't use it intentionally as a discipleship tool, as a retention tool, as an evangelism tool. And it's the craziest part is because you'll see all these programs do this class series, do this big intensive program, do this, do that. And frankly, they're all a ton of work to try and improve discipleship, to try and improve retention, to try and improve evangelism. Relatively speaking, fellowship is so easy. And yet, I would argue it's more effective than a lot of those programs that cost so much time, money, and effort. Because for fellowship, you're going to eat dinner anyway. Let's go eat dinner together. You're done. You've accomplished. It's so use it. And use it as often as you can, because it's so much more powerful than I think a lot of people are aware of.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. Like, I'm just thinking about what it is that, and you hear this kind of stuff too when it comes to fellowship and how that plays out. When I think about what draws people back to a church, to a congregation time and time again, you'll get some people who are like, oh, the sermons were cool. There will be some people who are like, oh, the music was great. But probably 80 to 90% of people, their thought process revolves around the people were friendly. Somebody remembered my name. I met somebody that I thought was cool. I caught up with somebody that I thought was interesting, that I knew from somewhere else in life. Like, I remember seeing a tweet yesterday from a guy I follow who's been trying to convert his mom from Southern Baptist to Lutheran for the longest time. And her Southern Baptist church is, according to him, I think a little sketch. And he finally convinced her to get to an LCMS congregation. She walked in the door and she recognized somebody from around town, and made a connection. And he was like super excited because she's legitimately giving weight to going back. And that's huge. That is so huge. And, we're not necessarily out here trying to sheep steal. It's good to get into a church with good doctrine. But, like, the bigger thing is that kind of thing applies to people coming into a community for the first time anyway. So many of our preschool families that have joined Good Shepherd over the last few years, it was because they had one anchor point, somebody from their neighborhood, somebody else from the preschool, me sometimes, just getting to know me a little bit as we talk in the parking lot or outside of the school. And that anchor becomes a reason to come back, and a reason to continue in the fellowship, and a reason to continue building out Dave.
Yeah. Well, and you members of the church are the best part of the church.
Yeah, we suck.
Even if your preacher is great, even if your facility is beautiful, what makes the church worth staying with, or what makes the church worth leaving, are the people who are sitting in the pews.
There are a lot of
Are they people who actually
churches.
want to be together, or are they people who put up with each other for an hour every week?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just think, what kind of groups do you want to be a part of? Where do you want to go spend? What kind of people do you want to spend your time with? People who are actually happy to see each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I got two more kind of thoughts on that. One is, when it comes to living as the church, fellowship as discipleship facilitates that process. I've heard a complaint a couple times. We have a handful of folks in our congregation who, at different points in their life, were parts of other congregations in the area, and there's still a little bit of hurt there for some of them, and that's okay. But one of the complaints I've heard, and this is here and other places, is, I left and no one said anything.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that hurts. And in another world where you weren't hurting, in another world where it wasn't kind of an emotional nerve for you, the follow-up question I would ask to push is, how would they know you were gone? Because if you just say, well, I've been going there for 30 years and I'm there every Sunday, it's like, yeah. Did you ever take the time to build a relationship with anyone? Because if no one knew you other than that person who sits in the pew in front of me, like, when you disappear, they're going to be like, I don't know their name. I don't know their contact information. I don't know anything about them to even start to reach out. But here's the thing. If you're, like, say you're in a small group that meets once a week, every week, and then suddenly you bail, you are definitely going to get questions about, where have you been? What are you doing? Why are you not here? Because you've built those relationships. Okay? And if you're in those relationships, your discipleship is better because then you can, not only are you served, someone's going to reach out if you're struggling, someone's going to try and connect with you. You can then do that to others. If you actually know people, you know how to serve them. You can reach out in love. You can pray for them when they need it, when life is rough. And you can't do that with strangers, not nearly as well. So that's kind of, and my music director shared an article with me a couple weeks ago now about the importance of community, because obviously this is important to me. So he came across this article and he shared it with me. And a lot of the article was in context of building choirs, singing together, that kind of thing. But I wrote down this quote. I'm probably going to use it in a sermon at some point. He kind of lists these different reasons that people will give for going to a church because they joined a church. And then they said, rarely will someone articulate, I go here because I have this impression that there's this incredible assembly of people that's going to change my life because they're going to shape me. They're going to alter my perspectives. They're going to deepen my life with Christ just by me being in their presence. That's what we're going for. And fellowship is an avenue to that. And I would say that that is the best reason to go to a church. Even if it may be a little bit more awkward to say than, oh, I like the preacher. I go to this church because I get the impression that this is going to deepen my life with Christ just by spending time with these people. You want to make your pastor's day, you tell them that's why you go to that's why you go to your church. Whew. I'd be pleased as punch.
You southern slipped out there, Josh.
I'm okay with that.
I thought you were going to respond with, "Oh, bless your heart."
Oh, no, I wouldn't
tempted.
do that to you, Ben.
You were tempted. I mean, so a lot of our kind of in the last like now 37 minutes, we're 37 and a half minutes into this podcast, have me like really thinking about every gym bro's favorite psalm, or not psalm, every gym bro's favorite proverb. You want to take a stab at it before I say it?
Are you going to say iron sharpens iron?
Yeah. You know it's every gym bro's favorite proverb.
It might be. There are a lot of gym shirts that have it on there, and I'm like, that doesn't mean what you think it means.
No, but there's some context to this, right? If you go work out with somebody else, do you work harder?
And Ben might be able to attest to this. When I was at the seminary and I was helping people get set up, because back then I was a personal trainer for about a year and a half. One of the advice I would tell guys who they'd never really been in the gym, they had never exercised much, which is way more common among pastors than it should be. Be a good steward of your body. Side note. I would tell them, find a gym partner. And a lot of them, very naive, sweet seminarian types that say, oh, so they can encourage me? No.
So they can call you chicken legs.
Yeah, find someone who's going to make fun of you for skipping, because I guarantee you're not going to skip. Ben's exactly right. Find someone, if you skip leg day, they're going to call you chicken legs for 2 weeks. You're not going to skip leg day. And so in the church, sometimes you need that friend who, when you miss, they're going to be like, you punk, get back in church. I see you skip Bible study. Brunch isn't that important. Get back to church. And that is you can't, I shouldn't say that. Most people can't pull that off with a stranger. Mm-hmm. You only can challenge people like that, challenge people to grow in their discipleship and to stick with their discipleship when you have a relationship with them that is secure enough that you can call them out like that. You need that, and you need to be that for other people. Mm-hmm. And you can only do that if you put the time in and build the relationships. fellowship is critical for discipleship.
Amen.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
The reason I brought up iron sharpens iron is that this is what that proverb is actually talking about, is like ye olden days, if you wanted to sharpen a metal implement, you had to find another big chunk of metal to sharpen it off of. And like as the two interacted, they honed both. Right? That's what we do in fellowship, is we're taking two rough instruments and honing both to make them both better.
Yeah.
And one is not better without the other.
And there's a lot of biblical precedent for that.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Old Testament, all the feasts and festivals that they sound so fancy because they're feasts and festivals, if you read through them, God is saying, go eat together and throw parties, and while you're there, remind each other of what I've done for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at Jesus, I mean, yeah, he teaches in synagogues, but a lot of times he's just walking around with his disciples, being a living object lesson for what a Christian looks like.
Yeah. Calling them out for their shenanigans, lifting them up when they need it. Or my favorite from last Sunday or maybe 2 Sundays ago, telling them, hey, pray for more workers in the harvest, and then immediately sending them out to go do mission among the people. Like, guys, get your head out of your rear. Like, see what's around you.
Go
and
do
then
the things.
Yeah, go do the things. Be with the people. Like, that passage starts and we just see Jesus swarmed by people. So obviously the disciples weren't doing anything to help. Who knows what they were actually up to? They might have recognized Jesus needed help, but they didn't get off their rears. So Jesus goes, all right, pray for help. Now you're the help.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Go do. You've seen, you know, you have the power to cast out demons and heal the sick. Go proclaim the gospel. We don't quite get that level of like authority straight from Jesus. We do have the Word and the Holy Spirit, so all things are possible. But I would not plan on curing someone's cancer this week.
Or raising the dead, which is also included in that list.
That's
I will
true.
try and link in the podcast notes. My sermon, I preached on that text this last week, and we spent the reason I link it is part of the sermon was what's the difference between us and the disciples? Because there is one.
Proximity to Jesus?
Big one. They were a lot more capable than we are. But
yeah. I would also argue consistent proximity to the incarnate Christ. I feel like that's
that would be the foundation of the argument.
Yeah. If you spend 3 years of your life walking around with Jesus and learning from him, I feel like that's going to be a life-altering experience in a way that, yes, we encounter Christ in the Word, in the body and blood, in communion, in the body of Christ, in our fellowship.
Getting a high five from Jesus is probably pretty great.
Do you know that the high five didn't get invented till the 80s or 70s, something like that? No joke.
Until the 1980s, no two humans ever thought, hey, let's celebratorily slap hands together.
We don't have any sort of, like, if you look at ancient artwork, there is no sort of,
Yeah, because no one until the 1980s was bored enough to write about it.
Dude, there are some pretty mundane things that people wrote about a long time ago, even when it took effort to chisel it into stone.
Whatever. You know what? I call me a skeptic.
You can look it up. The origin of the high five. Dusty Baker, former baseball manager and player, credited
Probably
with
not.
accidentally
Probably not going
inventing
to do
it.
that. Anyway, Ben, do you have some empty netters for us?
Yeah, go be with people. Be around people who can help build your Dave, and be around people for whom you can help them build their Dave, and not just like your own family. Be around others. Go make friends. Don't be a bum.
Yeah. I'm going to echo that pretty closely. Go spend time with other Christians. Whatever that needs to look like for you. Just do it.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Shia LaBeouf. 2016.
And with that exhortation and encouragement, brothers and sisters, go in peace. Serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of Cross-Checking, a ministry of Hope and Good Shepherd Lutheran Churches, where we strive to deepen your understanding of the faith and help apply it to daily life. If this podcast is helpful to you, rate the podcast, subscribe to us on your favorite platform, and share it with others who might also gain something from it.